Hey guys, this is Forsaken Reality here with the 37th episode of the multiplayer RPG tutorial series. In this episode, we're going to be continuing with our dialogue system, and we're going to be working on our player replies so that we can we'll now be able to open up our dialogue when we interact with them, and they'll ask us a question, for example, and then our list of replies will display. So without further ado, we will get into setting that up. So we're going to open up our dialogue behavior tree. And from here, we're going to create a new task for our player. Blueprint base. Just going to browse to this new task. I'm going to move it into the folder with my other task. Redirectors just in case. That's going to be our player reply task. So we want to open this up, and we're going to create a few variables in here. One being our dialogue widget. And we're going to reference to our dialogue widget, or our Blackboard key selector. And we could have actually just duplicated this one and cleared out the content, but I'm just going to show you how to recreate it from scratch. Player apply index. We're going to make this variable. It's also from the Blackboard. Both of these are going to be settable. Expose on spawn. I want our player name. That's going to be text. And one more. Player reply. That's also going to be a text, but it's going to be an array. So we're going to have multiple replies. Now we're going to override the receive execute AI function or event. So we can run this event whenever it's called. And from here, we need to open up our dialog widget first. So go into our widgets, our dialog widget. We're going to create a new custom event called player reply. And this event is going to have a few inputs, which are going to be player name, which is going to be text, and one more input, player replies, which is going to have our array of replies. It's already text. We're going to want to change that to an array, so we can send our replies from here to here, which I'll show you how to do that. So now we can come back to our reply, and we want to get our dialog widget. Get Blackboard value as object. And we're going to get our dialog widget, and that's going to be a pure cast because it's 100% going to succeed. And from here we can get our player reply event, so that now when this is called, it will send information from here to our player reply, but there's no information being filled out yet, as you can see. So we'll just plug in our player name and our player reply. Now this task will send the information. And we also want this to be instance settable. and expose on spawn. So now when we create our reply task in here, for example, now we have access to our player name and we can create our replies. It's going to create 3 replies. Yes, no, and see you later. And right now we don't have our player name. We're going to need our save system to set our player name, which we will be working on in the future. But right now we can just set player name. That will default as that. And have him asking a question so it actually makes sense. So now when our replies will be yes, no, and see you later. So we can see you later. We'll close out of the dialogue basically. So now that we have our task, that will send our player reply event, and then we'll get the information and fill it out and send it to our dialogue widget finally. So in our dialogue widget, the first thing we want to do is get our I just realized I didn't create the player name widget here. For now, we can simply add a horizontal box to this list view. And give it a name, player reply list view. Wrap with a horizontal box. And I'm just looking for which one would be the best. I'm just going to grab this size box, I think. Yeah, I grab this size box, or grab this horizontal box. And no. We're just gonna, I think we can just grab this details border, copy that, paste that into here. So now we have our details border for our player details border. So player. And we can delete this. And we can also delete it right here. We don't really need that. You can keep it there if you want it, but it's not really interfering with anything. You can have a player image if you want. And the way you'd set that up is you just player image, texture 2D. Now you can send your texture into your player reply. But we need an input. Now we go back to our player reply. We'll have this error because we don't have our player image plugged in. Now it'll send the image, which we can set if we turn this to instance editable and expose and spawn. And now we can set, so we don't need an array of images. make sure that's a single. And we'll also go into here and do the same thing. And we'll just plug our player reply in and our player image in, and now we can set our image to whatever we want. Just gonna set that just because it'll look different. And you can even just leave it blank. That'll work for now. Okay, so we have this being sent over here. Player reply. Okay, now we have everything properly set up. So we have a player image, our player name text, which is what we need. So we get our player name text. Type in set text. Which one is it? It's set text. Oh yeah, it's down here. I didn't see that for a second there. Set text. That'll set our player name. That'll be whatever's filled out here in our dialog tree. We can set our player. For now, it'll be this. We'll have it automatically fill out once we set our save information. And set brush from texture. And we're also going to want to get our player reply list. Clear list items. We're going to want to clear the list every time we open it, just in case there's anything left over there. So that's just in case. It's useful to have there. And you won't have any cases where you'll have replies from other things still in there. I want to create a function. This is going to be a get player replies function. And we are going to have one input. It's going to be replies text, and it's going to be an array. The way this is going to work is we're going to put this here to get our replies, and we're going to send that over here. So that we have our replies being sent into our function, where we will handle each one and to be displayed in their own list view widget. So we drag it up here for each loop. So we're going to loop through our replies, and for each one we're going to add items. We need to get a player list view first. Add items. Add item. There we go. And you notice that it's asking for an object reference for our text, but we Can't get an object reference for our text here, so we need to create an object that we can pass this through to send it into our player reply list view. So we're going to go out into our content browser and create a new blueprint object. We're going to put this. We're just going to, actually just going to put it in my dialog behavior trees folder just so it's together. So I'm just going to right click, create a blueprint class, and click object right here and select. And this will be BP player reply object. And we're going to need to create a variable in here to send the text to. And this will allow us to have an object to send the text out from. So now we can come back to our dialog widget. Make some room. Construct object from class. Get our player reply object. Reference to self. Instance editable and expose on spawn. I almost forgot to do that. I think that's what we were missing there. Text isn't displaying. Maybe we try refreshing it. Yeah, there we go. Now that we made it instance editable and expose and spawn and refresh this, we can now send our text into here. So each time it loops through, we'll send a line, the first line of text, the second line of text. And we're going to need this variable multiple times. We're also going to need it in a return. So an easier way, instead of having lines going all over the place, which I'll actually just show you first. So we'll plug this into our construct item. So it's going to send text to here and add the text item object there. So I'll display our text for each line we have displaying in our player replies. And we don't want to return it after the first loop because it won't allow it to loop anymore. So we want to our return right here. After everything's finished, it will return and that will be it. But we also want an out parameter. And our out parameter is actually going to be this, and this is what I mean where it can get a little messy this way. So an easy way around that would be to break this pin. Now you have this return node with an empty return value. And we want a variable, but we don't want to mess up our list of variables, so we'll create a local variable. I believe we've already done something on local variables on a previous video. Local player apply object. So I'll create a local variable that's only seen and accessible within this function specifically. So you have your local variables. If you go to your event graph, it's gone. Your set speakers, it's gone. There's nothing that's not there. You can set local variables for this specific function, but it's not in here. And now we have this variable that we can access within this function. So the scope is only within this function. And we can use this variable anywhere inside this function after this is set. So this is set, and then it completes. This is set, and we can also plug it in right here. So now we're returning our local object, and we're also setting it to the new item. So add some comments. Adds reply text to the player reply list view. It's a common typo, not to let go of the cap locks fast enough for me. Local reference to player objects. Scope is this function only, so you can't call this outside and won't be able to access it. Holy crap, I'm really bad with this time. Player apply screen, and there's also another one right here. So every single one I've written, capital L. Keep it down a bit. I'm just gonna pull this down. I like to do that when I have my them pulled out of false or when they're down like that, so it looks a little neater. And then I'm gonna comment everything here. Next to the player reply list view, but can also, that was something for myself when I was debugging. I actually removed that. So now we have this returning, this function created, and it returns I'm gonna change its name to, so we know it's the player reply object that's getting returned. So now we have replies coming in, them looping through, adding it to the reply list, and then creating the objects to send it out. Now we need to we need a click event so we can actually click. So in our player reply object, we're going to create an event dispatcher, and it's going to be clicked. And that's all we need to do here, just so we can call that when it's clicked. Go to our dialog widget. Okay, we need to drag out of get our player reply object. We're going to bind the clicked event. Create a custom event. That's going to be our clicked event. And we will plug this in like so. So basically when this is fired, it will run whatever's in here. So now that we have this set up this far, we're also going to want to set our state, set our talking to true. So we have this function that I made some changes to make it a little more obvious what's going on. So I have an NPC talking and NPC not talking. Rather than use a Boolean for this, I thought that it would be a little better if we used an Enum to set the name so we can actually see exactly what's going on. So we'll just go back to our content, blueprints, data, enums, blueprint, and it's going to be e_talking state. And the states in here are going to be NPC_talk. And NPC talk and player reply. Back into our dialog widget and create a variable. name it talking state, and we'll look for our talking state enum. Call that there. I'm going to delete that, remove this, and I'm going to drag this in and get that. Actually, I'm going to set this to whatever the input is. Just going to create the input like that. So I have our talking state on switch, depending on what we're doing. Our selection is whatever gets sent in through. So if we're talking, NPC is talking, it will collapse this, and if our player is talking, it will do that collapse. And in my opinion, that looks a lot neater than what we had originally, and to show you how much neater it is, we can refresh this node. I'm just going to delete it just so I can show you what it looks like when you're dragging it out. So now we have our NPC talk and player reply. So this one is our player reply. And this one, I'm also going to change this to set stop talking state. And this one's where our NPC is talking, so it makes a little more sense now. Okay, so now we're going to actually need to set up the event that switches between the two dialog windows, between our AI and player. So we're going to want to go to our behavior trees, open up our NPC talk task. And in here, we can override the or I guess we can just unbind just gonna copy this widget so we can get our widget reference. Unbind event from unbind event from NPC talk finish. So we're going to finish our NPC talking. Create an event dispatch, or no, we'll do that there. Okay, yeah, I got a little mixed up here. I was doing the unbind before we actually binded it. So drag it up here, bind event to NPC talk finished. So this is where I was getting confused. And our event is going to be a new custom event we're going to create called NPC underscore talk finished. And we're just going to plug this in like this. So now when we click on our NPC, it will run this event. And with this event running, it will run this event right here. And we also need to plug this into our unbind. Yeah, this is what I was missing. I missed a function in my dialog widget because it was in a drop-down menu that I didn't see. So we actually need a function in our dialog widget, override on mouse button down. So now we can determine if we're clicking our mouse down or not, our left mouse. So the first thing we're going to do is check our walking state. Check if our mouse button is down, and the mouse button we're looking for is the left mouse. And so NPC talk is true and our left mouse button is down, and we click while that is open. Call NPC talk finished, which is our event dispatcher right here. So now when we click, we have our AI screen open. We're also going to just type it handled because we handled our event. We hit the click is handled properly. It makes it to there. So we click, we call the finished event. And that will go into our NPC talk. And if we're binding the event on finished, it will run this event right here. And I'm actually going to make this a little bit neater so we can break that, drag out, create an event, and just plug in the NPC talk function so that when we click while it's open, it will run the event right here. Now it just looks a little neater. And then it will unbind the event from the NPC and so finish the execution of the task, and that will allow it to continue to the next task. This allows, basically you can use it to the next task. Comments in here so we know what we're doing. Talking, state, and clicking. So basically it's checking if we're talking already. When we click the mouse, it's checking if we're talking to an NPC, sending the NPC talk finished, and that will allow us to display our player dialogue. I'm just looking through here, making sure I have everything filled out the way it should be. Well, this will run the event. I'm going to put a bigger comment on this one actually, just so you can understand a little better. Then it will set basically it finishes it and sends the event, which gets picked up by our NPC talk task right here, and that finally plays here and finishes the execution. Let's do a quick test. I think there might be one thing that I'm missing. Nope, that's it for now. That's it. It actually works. Can't help you with anything. Your player text will show up. We can't actually click through it yet because we haven't set that functionality up yet. Yeah, that's where I got confused though. With the mouse button clicked, I completely forgot about it. Because we noticed that it's right now we have the functions in its little drop down menu. So we get rid of these. So we're going to click on mouse. It's going to send it to the NPC task, play this event, and finally finish the execution. And that will allow us to display our player reply, which will move on to the next task and play our player reply. That's what happened. That's what's happening right here. It's moving on to the next task. And the player reply will send its messages to the event here. So your player name, your replies, and it's all, and this will set everything on the UI. And you'll set your player state. This is where the player reply text is set. So that when we click a reply, right now, nothing's happening because this event is firing, but we're not actually doing anything here. We're not removing anything. We're not telling it to do anything. And just gonna ignore that I did that capital there. So that's going to be everything for this episode. In the next, if you found this video helpful and want to see more, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on any new tutorial video uploads. If you have any questions, suggestions, or comments, feel free to leave those in the comment section below or join my Discord server using the link in the description. Thanks, and I'll see you all in the next episode.